All right. Well, welcome. This is Ted Oakley, and I am here, fortunately, able to interview Chris Jordan of Fluency Security. And he is going to be participating in the Texas Cybersecurity Summit coming up in late September. And we can, really go ahead and get started. So Chris, what can you tell me a little bit about your company? It's a platinum sponsor of Texas Cybersecurity Summit this year, and we appreciate your support. Tell us about your booth this year and what you'd like attendees to know about Fluency Security, and maybe a little bit of like an executive summary.
Okay, so Fluency Security was started by myself and Quinn Lowe about 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago. We both left McAfee. I was a VP for threat intelligence at McAfee. And our main focus originally was around big data and the impact of big data and security. We felt that people weren't leveraging big data well. Now, as we have moved forward, we've really realized that one thing that's done terribly is that we use the database too much. So early on, we've been doing streaming analytics. Now you're hearing a lot about what's called observability, which is a version of streaming analytics. And so what we've been doing is trying to make streaming analytics part of a operations center's way of evaluating data. And then we call it full stack. As far as full stack threat hunting, is we do the detection in real time using streaming analytics, and then we store data in a big data lake to be able to do the forensics work. And so what Fluency is some people would call us a SIM, other people would call us a threat hunting tool. We're really a SOC tool for being able to detect and close events.
Gotcha. And then as far as it seems that you've kind of just went over some of your core capabilities, but do you have something more that you can share about what your core capabilities are at Fluency Security?
Well, the core capability is the technology around it. We have 3 patents around real-time, or we call streaming analytics or data rivers. And what happens is the data comes in, instead of storing in a database and doing hundreds of searches, we can do thousands of concurrent searches at the same time. And when the detection occurs, it occurs immediately. So instead of running thousands of searches back to back to back to back, so maybe you're running one every 10 minutes, everything's running in real time. So you're getting your alert right away. So CrowdStrike had this idea of this 1-10-60 challenge. 1 minute to detect, 10 minutes, right, to, 1 minute, 1 minute to detect, 10 minutes to acknowledge, and then 60 minutes to resolve. If you're searching every 10 minutes, half the time you're late. So, I should say more than half the time, 90% of the time you're late. And at that point there, you're already past the acknowledgement point. So real-time analytics or streaming analytics is huge. The other thing we're into is from the observability point of view, it's kind of an interesting thing. Gartner's into observability, which is the three cornerstones are logs, metrics, and traces. But what they're not telling you is observability is a word that's used to listen, right? So it's about real time listening to events. It's the difference between like JavaScript listening to a browser versus something that goes to a site and scrapes it every 10 minutes, right? Observability, reactive designs. This is where the technology is going. This is a major change in the industry. It just hasn't caught up yet from a marketing perspective, but from a technology race, it's already started.
All right. Well, thanks, Chris. And then as far as differentiators, what can you share in regards to what Fluency Security is doing and with your company and what you're bringing to industry and again, the differentiators?
Well, one differentiator, people don't like to talk about cost or the way to go to business as a differentiator, but it is. We do everything by what we call by hard asset, by user, by hard asset, which means that for $5 per month per user or hard asset, we collect the data, analyze it, and alert so that there's no add-ons, no changes to the structure. So you can very simply say, if I've got 1,000 people in my company, that's basically $5,000 a month for running Fluency as real-time analysis and data store, unlimited data. So that's one differentiator. The other differentiator, from a management point of view, I talked about the add-ons and stuff like that, is we don't go back and say, listen, you're 15 or 20% over, we're redoing the budget. We understand that managers have to actually do their budget once a year. So we make sure that we try to stay inside unless there's some major change in the amount of data coming in and the amount of assets being run. There's no conversation that's going on. That we wait till the year is over and then we kind of rebump it. And the reason is, like I said, is that we're about operations and business as using our product. And so we need to understand that the buyers of it can really only, they have a budget for a year. They don't have a budget for a month. And then, so that's one aspect of it. The other aspects, as far as a differentiator go, we brought up the real time, we brought up the integration. The other big aspect is how heavy we are in cloud. For a pure SaaS model, we grab AWS structure, AWS control plane data, Azure control plane data, GCP data. We grab cloud data and we analyze it, giving a more control. Because what's happened in our industry, besides the changes in perimeter, is the cloud. We all know it, but what we don't really understand is that how do you manage the cloud, right? You cannot throw yourself an IDS or an IPS truly in the cloud because the control plane won't be protected by that IDS or firewall. So you have to be able to use things like CloudWatch, CloudTrail, be able to consume it and understand what's going on, be able to consume the metrics that are being generated. So understanding the interrupts, all this is new frontier, especially when it comes to security. Security, we've been, I hate to say we've been in the past, but we are. In security, the majority of designs that we have in security are to store it in a database and search it. There's only a few companies that do it in real-time analytics. Splunk has SignalFX. SignalFX, it only handles 5,000 devices. That's it. That's its dimension. So if you're a company with more than 5,000 devices, you can't use it. So there's limitations right now in real-time analytics. So companies will say they do it, but they don't do it. And so this is a huge differentiator for us. You know, I've hit it a number of times. I keep on saying real time and stuff like that, but it is a big differentiator because you can't automate something and say, oh, I've got a SOAR that can automate it and stop attacks. It can't stop attack if it's detecting 10 minutes late. So we put so much effort on this automation, but we're starting later. I mean, it's like getting a weather report from yesterday. It's useless, right? And that's the problem with a lot of the SIM design today, is that the data coming in is too late to respond to in an automated fashion. So when you say differentiators, like I said, we're looking at this as an operations problem, as a mathematics problem, and not as a problem of perfection by going into a data lake and searching data lakes all the time. We understand that that just is a model that's broken, and we want to fix it.
Right. So with mathematics and, all the data, what is, I'm just bringing this in as far as like AI and ML and, what are some of the aspects that are relative to what you're doing, and of course the future of big data and what's needed to be able to, like you said, with just 5,000 devices, what's going to expand and help businesses scale, and it seems that you're finding these solutions.
Right. So you bring up AI ML, which is just a good conversation. We do use a lot of ML. And machine learning is significantly different than AI. I consider machine learning a first step. Some people consider it AI. It's not. Basically, all machine learning is doing is understanding the predictability of a trend based on the math that you're giving it. The Twitter seasonal algorithm is an excellent algorithm. We deploy it. It's good. But the problem with AI and all this ML and everything in general is the fact that it's done, first of all, it's done off data lake models. And so if you're modeling something and the world is changing, your model's broken, right? So you have to have models that are changing in real time. And what we're doing is we're using algorithms that are really good for cyclical events, like predicting, stock changes year over year, right? I mean, there's some really good algorithms out there, but what they're not is there's not an adversary affecting that data, right? The other thing that happened is our technology, what we're doing changes all the time. If your infrastructure is the same infrastructure you had 3 years ago, you're a company that's behind, right? So as your technology changes, your protocols change, how you use the internet changes, your models break, right? So AI and ML, the concept of a model is built off things that are static. And what has to change in our industry is we have to understand that we have to be able to handle the models as they change, the behaviors as they change. And that's another, I'll wrap it up on that is I use the word behavior. Normally, what we're finding is that understanding behavior is significantly better than just running AI against the hardcore flow numbers. That we find that being able to profile and understanding the user entity and then drawing the behaviors and then analyzing from that is significantly better. And the reason is because in your infrastructure, the data coming back from all your logs really is separate. You have your physical plane level, you have your transport layer, right? Your internet, your non-internet, your services in the cloud, which really don't really care about the connection. And you have your entities that are using your services, your people. And so you've got a way of correlating that stuff together and generating a model off what's actually doing the action. And that's something that's right now very difficult for AI if it's just getting raw data. And that's the issue in our industry. We think that shoving raw data into AI solves the problem. AI needs the data to be higher quality, and that means that it needs to change. It needs to you need to use behavioral analytics, other techniques, UEBA, and get the data to a level that AI can leverage it. Because otherwise, the first thing AI is going to do is try to do these things. It's going to try to be able to do the correlation and see relationships in the data that to a human you already know. So it's silly to give it raw data. You have to give it a more robust data set. And in our industry, I think we're doing that. That's our approach. But there's, again, we're seeing ML as being a stronger play right now than AI. AI techniques are too data lake oriented, and they're susceptible because really it's a change of mode of operation. But let's take the military. When you're doing things, you test wise, it's one thing. All of a sudden, you have to go into battle. The systems change. You don't want the system to say, "Oh, this is screwed. We got to stop this." No, this is what happens in a critical event. This is what I want to happen, and you can't have AI pushing back against it, saying, "No, I'm used to not doing this," right? And these are the issues we have. That you have to have a person in the loop. AI is to support the mission. It's not to enforce it.
Yeah, understood. And as far as future tech and what Fluency Security is looking for in the next 5 to 10 years, what is it that you're thinking of wrapping in with your leading technology, your leading and cutting edge technology? What is it that you're thinking about in the next 5 to 10 years, and how data is going to change? And you are talking about that, but it's very hard to predict, right? 5 to 10 years from now, when everything changes so quickly. But with everything with quantum computing and edge computing and what's going on now, what are some of your thoughts?
Well, I think if you're taking a look at the industry and saying where are the biggest changes, I think the largest change is we're becoming service oriented. So we've had decades of being used to being IP address or system oriented. And then there was this kind of middle ground of containers, but we're treating the containers as if they're an IP address. Eventually, we're going to have to move away from this, just like we moved away from using MAC addresses to try to determine what a machine is. We have to move into an entity that's a service-oriented entity. What is this server? What are these users and how they interact with the server? And that has to be the base layer, especially when you look at the zero trust models that people are talking about. We're basically enforcing the relationship between users and services. Yet our technology is not based on that. Our technology today is really based, it's either host-based people or system, network people. The reality, it's neither right now. We're moving into a very much a UEBA where that's user entity, but now there has to be another one, services. I think that we have to say that services are what we interact with, not systems. So I think if you want to know the future, I think that's the way you need to start looking at the future. You need to look at the future as what are services? How do we authenticate services? How do we enforce the relationship between a service and a person? And then that's going to change the way we manage things. Like I said, right now, we don't look at services at all. We look at systems.
Gotcha. Okay. And then as far as the Texas Cybersecurity Summit, Some of our attendees may be interested in employment, and so I'm kind of switching gears here. But is there some place they should go to find out more about the company and opportunities?
You can hit the website. There's a contact at fluencysecurity.com. That's a really good way to reach out. Or if you want to talk to salespeople, just go to the website, put something on there. But if you go to contact at fluencysecurity.com, it actually goes to all the managers in the company. And so everybody gets to see it. I shouldn't really say that out loud, but everybody sees it. We were very pro talking, I guess is the best way to put it. We have Slack channels for all our customers. We like to engage our customers. It's a very much a two-way street. People that want to get involved with Fluency, you can reach out to us on that email address. Of course, we're going to have a booth at Texas Cyber Summit. We've been there for the last couple of years. So if you miss us this year, you can come back next year. I mean, I'm looking forward to San Antonio, which is a completely different change. I've been excited because of the support the Saha group and the rest of the San Antonio group has given Texas Cyber Summit, and I'm excited to see if we can grow this conference in the San Antonio area to kind of switch conversations. But we're going to be there year after year, and I look forward to meeting people.
Right. No, that's great. And as far as the conference itself, so you've been coming and you've seen many of the talks. So this year, what has interested you in what you may be attending?
That's funny. I'm more of a random guy. One of the things I think that's important on a conference is to go to is a lot of people, they like the hallway stuff. They like the vendor stuff. I like to try to sit down as many conference pitch or whatever speeches of technology that I actually have no idea about. So Black Hat, DEF CON, DEF CON had lightning speeches. Yeah, DEF CON had lightning speeches, little 15-minute speeches. And I found that they were wonderful. It was a lot of fresh ideas, new ideas. I want to see new speakers because quite honestly, I'm tired of the old speakers. I'm tired of the people I hear over and over again. They're basically just getting up there and telling stories that have absolutely nothing that is going to enhance my knowledge of the universe. It's good to see people out there who really love something, who struggle to get on that stage. And so, yeah, that's when I get there, I like to go down and say, I've never seen that person, I want to see him, or I've never heard that topic, I want to go to it. So I'm kind of a random person. I'm just going to jump in and see what I could see.
No, that's great. Yeah, I think that's the best way to attack it, especially with the way new tech is flying in, and so as far as what should we be looking for from your company in the next few years pertaining to your company's vision and customer adoption? So
the biggest change in our vision is really cloud, and I know people say, "Wow, that's kind of late." No, it's the observability aspect, the reactive the reactive programming style, structure style, that there's hundreds of metrics that are coming out of AWS. And yet from a management perspective, very few tools leverage them at all, right? And so a good example is even running our own ops. We had to write stuff that would give us interrupts when we'd have service issues. We found this to be silly that you're getting alerts about disk capacity once an hour when the disk might be filling up immediately in the middle, right? You can write an alert in the middle saying, I'm seeing this thing fill up. I know this is going to be a problem, send out an alert. And that's kind of what the big change to us is that we're looking at getting more heavily involved. Well, what type of data can we see in the cloud and in the services to be able to allow better prediction and management and control of it? A lot of people, when we think about security and the CIA, we think about the confidentiality and the integrity. But the availability has been one of these things that the only time we ever get a call on security is when the CEO can't get through their mail. And they say, it's a firewall issue, let's call security, right? Availability is a significant issue, and security is the right place to solve it. I've had this argument with networking people all the time, and you heard my opinion of services. The network is nothing anymore. Right? It's the reason is because it could be a cloud, it could be, who knows, an IoT device, an OT device. So the reality is that the services were provided, the availability of that services is going to be more and more into the security, saying, is this a trust issue? What is it that's causing this communication issue? And I see our company moving more heavily into understanding and managing infrastructure, and infrastructure that's just not, like I said, cloud. You heard me say OT, so the idea is that our idea of a WAN, it's gone, right? And you look at people in general, we're all hybrid workers now, even if we're still going in the office. The reality is that the infrastructures we used to rely on, they're gone. The way we do servers, they're gone. And so this is a great time, a fun time. We think that, like I said, it's learning the data and getting the most we can out of these APIs and the data that is being provided. AWS, I keep on bringing AWS because they're far ahead of everybody else in what data is available in that cloud infrastructure. Yet there's very few companies leveraging it, and therefore people aren't seeing the true advantages of what can be done with cloud infrastructures. So yeah, we're very heavily in that. Like I said, we're heavily on the A, and we're also heavily in observability. And we find that this is going to be, we think this is the most important part to security right now, is getting better control over these new infrastructures.
So, what are your thoughts? And I'm going to throw you a curveball. So, what are your thoughts on the blockchain? And because there's thousands of them, over 1,000 blockchains actually, and the primary ones that we've heard of is Bitcoin and Ethereum, et cetera. But there's different layers, and so layer one, layer two type blockchains, basically the blockchain stack. Technology stack that all the way up to the application layer. And what do you see in regards to blockchain and how that's going to affect cybersecurity in the future? Because more and more, I believe that the metaverse and is coming, which is a lot of Web 2, right? A lot of AR, VR, MR, XR, all the things that Microsoft Mesh and others are working on, Meta. But I think it's going to be a challenge, right, for cybersecurity to when a CEO goes or a CIO goes knocking on the door at the server room and says, "Hey, I want my company to enter the metaverse, and what's this blockchain thing? Because I want to be on it." Have you ran into those types of issues yet, and do you foresee that happening, and when?
Yeah, it does show up. It mostly shows up. Obviously, the crypto people are obviously big into blockchain, but blockchain, especially in the startups, there's a lot of startups using blockchains for other things like identity management. There's a lot of changes. Blockchain, you have to look at blockchain separately than we do at cryptocurrency. I think that's the first thing that we have to educate people on is blockchain as a technology difference, open ledger. People are talking about, oh, how secure it is. Listen, here's the worst part about blockchain. Most blockchains are designed after SHA families, and we know SHA is broken. So you brought up the word, you brought up quantum computing. Blockchains are going to have a really hard time if quantum computing turns out to be a real thing. So there are issues around blockchain, and there's so many people so much for it that anytime you naysay it, they say, you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, we do know what we're talking about. The beauty of crypto, Bruce Schneider would have told you, the beauty of open source crypto is that the community can vet it together. And right now, there really is no true vetting of it. There's too much of a you can't attack blockchain. You have to accept it. And the reality is that the hacking industry has been a very solid industry of tearing things apart that say you can't break it. Loft used to have the saying, making the impossible possible. And the point here is that what we're looking at is a technology that, yeah, let's say it's solid, it's often implemented wrong. And so that's usually the key around hacking. The early hacks are going to be attacks against bad implementation. And I think you're going to see a lot of that. You've already seen a lot of bad crypto. You're going to see a lot of bad implementations. You're going to see people trying to use it for when it could be a simpler technology, could have used it. But Open Ledger is a good technology. That's the truth. And that there are things that can be done in a security way. But the other aspect around security is security is a huge industry. and that you say, what part of security are you in nowadays? Because it's all over the place. And the reality is blockchain impacts a very small part of security today. It's a big topic. We like to talk about it because there's no experts really in it. And so when you're talking about blockchain, like I said, it has a mythos around it that allows you to say a lot of things that are wrong. The reality is that blockchain is a new technology. It's a hype technology. It's going to take a long time before it's mainstream capable. Now, just because Bitcoin is in there and stuff like that, listen, Bitcoin's a Ponzi scheme. Let's just be a reality to it. And people are going to say, yeah, but it's got a base. It does because there's always so much money in it. But the reality is that doesn't justify blockchain. That just justifies the community around Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So the long and the short is, how do I feel about blockchain? I think blockchain is a very interesting technology. I think there's a lot of startups looking at it. I think you should be really aware of blockchain, not for the hype words like you brought up the metaverse. Take a look at blockchain handling things like identity management, blockchains for reputation analysis, review analysis. There's a lot. Open Ledger is a very powerful technology, and that this could create newer businesses out there. I guess that's the best way to say it. And the longer or short is take it. Blockchain is a fantastic technology, but learn it and see what can be done with it besides currency.
No, I think that's great insight, because there is a lot of hype, there is a lot of interest, and the technology is maturing. But I would just love the angle from cybersecurity and how cybersecurity takes a look at it. So I appreciate the insight there. So I'd love to give you the opportunity here to share any last items. We talked about a lot of things, and but for Fluency Security, and the excitement that's starting to ramp up for the Texas Cybersecurity Summit. I know there's going to be a lot of great speakers and a lot of activities that are coming up, and you coming to visit Texas. So yeah, what are some of your last thoughts, and please share.
Yeah, so I think one of the reasons why I like Texas Cyber Summit, I like a lot of the B-side events too. I like Wild West Hack Fest is another great conference. I think that we a long time ago in DEF CON, we used to talk about how community was very important. We wanted to start a community, and I think that it's evolved. And unfortunately, these larger events, these RSAs, these black hats, have really lost direction. And I think that I think my personal soapbox is that we can't keep on reinventing garbage marketing. I think that we really have to take a look at smaller companies doing great things, and smaller conferences coming up with better topics. Listen, it's I like B-sides to it, given the open soapbox for everybody to talk to. But the reality is that there's a lot going on that's not being captured at the higher level because these larger venues are really being skewed by the Gartners and those larger organizations that have their own agenda. So that's kind of like my 2 cents, I guess. I think that from my perspective, I think that these events are very critical because this is where people actually are focused on solving the problem and not sitting around drinking. And I can't tell you how many LinkedIn things I've seen where I couldn't figure out if DEF CON, what was happening at Black Hat or DEF CON, because all people were doing was posting their parties.
Right. Yeah. So Chris, we just had the pleasure of listening to Chris Jordan, and this is one of the Platinum Series interviews for the Texas Cybersecurity Summit. And once again, Chris Jordan with Fluency Security. Want to thank you for taking the time out to answer some questions and really add some insight into some future tech, and sharing what your capabilities are for anyone that wants to be able to listen to what you have to share. Thank you.
Thanks. See you in a couple weeks.